All right, again, good afternoon and welcome to our Caldwell County Board of Commissioners meeting, this for June 10th, 2024. We want to welcome everyone in our audience this evening, as well as those who are now joining us by YouTube, internet, TV, and a host of other things. But we appreciate everyone tuning in this evening. And our first order of business, we're going to have our invocation. We have Pastor Christopher Bass with us from the Philadelphia Lutheran Church. And so, Pastor, if you'll come, and then we'll follow that with our Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Jeff Branch will lead us in that. So.
Standing for the invocation. Fantastic. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Bass, and I'm vicar at Philadelphia Lutheran in St. John's and Lenoir. These are two little churches that are in the more rural parts of our county. And so I was just invited here today. I'm so happy that the people in North Carolina are so overwhelmingly hospitable and just very gracious and kind to me over these last few years that we've been here. Luther was a great one for reminding us all about our civic duties in living in what he called two different kingdoms, that is, a secular world and a religious world, or a spiritual world. That as true believers in Christ, we engage our community in a concrete way to foster innovation, positive change, and a deeper relationship with our common God. Luther often used the image of a great cedar tree of Lebanon in describing the purpose of a just and benevolent government, one that is straight and true. A reading from Ezekiel chapter 17. Thus says the Lord God, I myself will take a sprig from the lofty top of a cedar. I will set it out. I will break off a tender one from the topmost of its young twigs. I myself will plant it on a high and lofty mountain. On the mountain height of Israel, I will plant it, in order that it might produce boughs and bear fruit and become a noble cedar. Under it, every kind of bird will live. In the shade of its branches will nest winged creatures of every kind. All the trees of the field shall know that I am the Lord. I bring low the high tree. I make high the low tree. I dry up the green tree and make the dry tree flourish. I am the Lord. I have spoken. I will accomplish this. I hope y'all can appreciate that. Being a Lutheran in this place, I'm almost a minority everywhere I go. So for all of us here that are Lutherans, the Lord be with you. Also with you. Wise and faithful God, come into our meeting tonight that we may keep our minds and the eyes of our hearts focused on the beauty of your creation. Help us to have confidence in our deliberations, making important decisions that change us all for the better. Allow that we can be a part of this most noble work as we enjoy the fruit of the great cedar tree where we all can flourish. Amen.
Amen. Everyone face the flag, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. Are there any amendments to our agenda this evening?
Yes, sir, we have more than a few here. We've had a busy month. Would like to add item 24, which would be a budget amendment to the DHHS building for a security system in the amount of $103,000. Item 25 would be a contribution to the nonprofit Total State Forest from our funds over in Soil and Water. And then item 26 will be another fireworks display for the town of Roadhouse. They all come in late in the week. So.
All right. You said it faster than I can write it.
Sorry, sir. 24 is the camera system budget amendment.
Anybody have any questions over the agenda amendments? And if not, do I hear a motion that we adopt this evening's agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept this evening's agenda as the county manager has presented.
All right, any other discussion or comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. And so our first item for decision is a call for a public hearing for naming of an unnamed road, Gringer Lane. I'm saying that right? So Micah's coming this evening.
Hey, Micah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we had a developer come through, and I believed that it was going to go through the planning office, but in their time at the planning office, me and Shelley discussed it. It did not have to go through the naming through their side, so that's why we're doing it through the commissioners meeting here tonight. So I'm asking for a vote in the next meeting to be named Gringer Lane, is how they have said it and spelled it. It is Gringer Lane. And they have two other names that they've submitted if you do not want to go with Gringer, but that was their first choice that all the residents that have purchased properties have agreed to.
All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't think we have a Gringer
No,
Lane
it's
in
just
the
a
county,
call,
do we?
yeah, it's just a call to have a vote in the
Right.
next meeting.
Okay.
So,
But we don't have a Gringer in the county, right? No other,
No,
Gringer
there is
Lane,
not
okay.
one other in the county.
didn't think so.
so do I hear a motion? We call for the public hearing to be held on July 10th?
Sure.
No, I believe it's the
It is the 8th. Thank you.
July the 8th.
July the 8th.
Days of 10th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we vote on, have a public hearing, vote on this, the July the 8th meeting.
All right. Any other comment or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. So thank you, Mike.
Thank y'all. I'll see y'all
Thank
next
you,
month.
Micah.
Next, we're going to enter into our fiscal year budget and our public hearing to be held over our fiscal year budget for the 24-25 upcoming year. And we don't have anyone signed up this evening for that. Is there anybody here in the audience that specifically wants to speak to the upcoming budget? Don't everybody jump up at once. All right, so with that, I'll entertain a motion that we open the public hearing for the budget.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing.
All right, so while we're in this open hearing, is this when we want to hear from you at this point?
We'll do the presentation. then
Yes,
we
sir.
adopt the ordinance. All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Again, we can do budget and do the spreadsheets and the normal manager's message, but what I thought I'd like to do is continue what we did last year, is kind of show examples of what your budget actually means for you and for the citizens. So we break it down in all the funds that we have, and our largest fund, of course, is general fund. Our total budget's just under $124 million, but you'll find out there's a lot to that. So highlights for this year is the property tax rate remains the same. We've had a significant amount of tax-based growth as well, and then continuing to support our employees with merit 1 and 2. Also, we'll have the third part of 3 pay scale implementation increases. Veteran services, we're having some expanding services there. Medicaid expansion is a big part of your budget this year. We'll go into that in detail. EMS staffing, we continue to have more and more folks need paramedicine. And we'll continue, this is to be the second year of the community grant pool for some of our nonprofit partners. So let's start with general fund. General fund is broken down into a few key categories. A lot of people look at what you do for your tax dollars. And so public safety, human services, and education being our largest expenditures, but that's not our entire education budget. We'll go through that in just a minute as well. Also economic and physical development and a few of the other smaller ones, but you can see how it breaks down with public safety, human services, and education being almost all your budget. Public safety this year, we've got some really neat things going on. We have an older SWAT robot that goes in and monitors when we're having to deal with people who are barricaded in without sending an officer in to risk that. The operating system for that robot is pretty old. It's went down, so to replace it costs more than to buy a new machine. And so we'll also have some contributions from the asset seizure funds to go in and help upgrade that so we're able to deploy gas into a building without putting an officer at risk. Night vision and 8 patrol vehicles with K9 cages. And then we've had flock cameras in the budget for the last prior 2 years. This will be the third year with them, but you got free use of those for the prior 2 years. Now that you have a full deployment, we've had to add that expense into the budget. You'll notice that our sheriff department and detention office take up half of the emergency services budget. The rest is broken down between EMS, fire marshal, emergency management, and comms. Obviously, we like to talk about our folks here. We have the major, who we think may be promoted next month to sheriff upon the resignation and retirement of our beloved Sheriff Alan Jones. And then we've got a new paint scheme coming in for patrol cars this year. This has been a very popular paint scheme. We only have the one card, so we're going to be adding that to the fleet as they matriculate through. Emergency services, our guys are out all the time. We respond to over 20,000 calls a year. And then we host training for not only just for our folks, but for the region and all parts of the state in emergency management and large-scale disasters. This year in the budget, you also have 2 ambulances to be remounted. It's now a 36-month lead time for a new ambulance. We can turn around remounts a little bit quicker than that, with less than, depending on the scale, anywhere from 6 months to a year. So that's why we're recommended to keep the fleet up to date. And your restart program, it's its own separate budget because the funds are limited on how you can spend them. But you now have one of the strongest teams in the state, $500,000 a year, produces harm reduction for citizens and peer support specialists. We now have 3 peer support specialists on staff, and they're doing a great job, and they're actually consulting with counties all across the state now. You went from having no program 4 years ago to now you're leading the way. So let's look at human services. Human services is the other part of our budget, and this is where we receive the majority of our revenue that's not tax dollars back. And I want to share with you particularly some of the things that we have going on. We have reinserted now what I'm trying to think of, the day we have Celebration of Life. That's one of our largest attendance events in the county. And then we have our Child Care Day, or Child Health and Safety. And so those 2 events touch about the youngest and the oldest. But here's something I want to share with you. Medicaid expansion, which started in December. Since 2014, Medicaid caseload in this county has increased 104% because of our aging population. While staff has only increased 27%. In this current budget, the state is providing for 6 more people to help make sure that Medicaid is deployed correctly, that you have the correct certifications, and that people are not abusing Medicaid and people are getting their benefits. Just since December, we've had 2,919 additional Medicaid folks. And those are all on full Medicaid coverage, so this is their only source of insurance. Expansion funds are $175,000 last year, $263,000 this year, so the expansion is at no cost to Caldwell County. But the caseload that we're working is 1,100 people per employee. That's just impossible to maintain. So if we're able to add these new positions this year in the budget that's paid for by the Medicaid expansion, the goal is to try to get that into the sub 900, which is the state recommendation. And then I want you to pay special attention to this chart here. This is how many people in Caldwell County are on some form of Medicaid, almost 22,000 folks. One third of your entire population basically is on Medicaid. Human Services, our health department's done some great stuff this year, and I want to commend our health director and the staff. They've made a very strong effort in this past budget year with almost little revenue that they could go to do this with, but expand behavioral health opportunities. And so we did that with two operations, and we have behavioral health on site now for our employees 3 days a week. So if you're having a crisis, you or your family member, somebody you can go and talk to. Now it's only part-time, but we're getting there. Another thing I want to talk about is our folks at Animal Care. We have one of the highest rabies transmissions in the state. And so our animal care director has now been asked to be on the Animal Control and Rabies Board for the state. We administered almost 2,000 rabies vaccinations in calendar year 23. So that's pretty impressive. And I think half of that was paid for by a grant. We got it paid for out of the almost all the doses were halfway paid for. Let's see. Next, let's talk about education. Now, I want to zoom in and show you a slide you've seen before. This is our general fund straight-up contribution of almost $19 million every year into education funds. But we do more than that, and we want to show that. We actually do quite a bit more with debt service for both the community college and the Caldwell County school system. And if you add all of that up, you add the SROs and the nurses, that's $27.4 million that we actually put in. So it's a much larger number than people think. We really hadn't talked about all that in the past. This was an event that Mr. Branch and I got to attend earlier this year, and it was the kickoff for the new school year. And Jeff, you remember what they taught us that day?
It was about AI. It was really, really shocking what's coming.
It was.
Down the pipe.
One of the best presentations I've seen, and they were telling us about how they're starting to teach kids in kindergarten, first grade AI. So there'll be a whole generation of a whole new level of technology that we have yet to really experience. And our school system's already on top of it.
And lots of people is going to be losing their jobs.
It'll be a transition, that's for sure. Also want to talk about our partnership with Caldwell County Schools. Here's our Touch a Truck event. We also do a recycling and sanitation training to try to help keep the community clean. This is one of the events for that. And our school resource officers, how they contribute to the community, and how this, in many cases, is the first experience a child has with government outside of school. And so it's great having our law enforcement. And then we ended the year this year with our town hall day with our elected officials talking to our soon-to-be graduates about how to stay, what we need to change to make them want to stay here in our community. General government, this is kind of the catch-all for everything else. This is what you would call the staff that does their work to keep everything else running. Big changes coming to veteran services. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to pay special attention to human resources. Human resources is a big number, but that's where your liability insurance is at. That's where your workman's comp's at. So that's where those are expensive. If we're doing drug tests for new hires and new employees, orientation, getting everybody signed up for their benefits, that's the first experience our new employees have is with HR. I'll share some numbers with you here. How many veteran services officers do you think Catawba County has? Now, they're more than twice our size. Just take a guess. They just got their third person. Avery County has a part-time person. Wilkes County has one. Burke County has one. Alexander County has one. Everybody that touches us other than Catawba County only has one or a part-time person. At the end of this summer, we'll have 3 full-time veteran service officers with this budget. Claims for veterans has more than doubled in just the last 2 years. And I attribute that to the wars winding down, veterans retiring, moving, changing jobs, moving back here. We have a lot of calls and claims, but think about it when we're doing 24 calls or claims a day.
I do know also that a lot of our activity comes from other counties because they're so backed up. They can't provide the service, so they come here to get service. So
And even other states.
it's bleeding into us and other states as well, correct?
Yeah, we've had people that were here on vacation, say in Blowing Rock or somewhere. They look online, they see our veteran service office, they see the rating on it, they'll just walk in the door
Yeah.
because they couldn't get service in their home community.
A lot of bleed over from other counties, though.
IT, we're going to continue with making improvements. We have a huge improvement we're getting ready to make for Register of Deeds office and our records keeping there. That's important. And this is just what all goes into it. We've got a new Veteran Services Director. Very excited about Joe's entrance into our family. He's done a great job so far. And then facility services. And what we're doing here is recycling electronics. And our electronics tonnages keep going up every day. So we have more and more of that, and it's an important feature. We have a full-time staff that's all they do now. So economic development, we've completely restructured our entire economic development department. Tonight you're going to make some new appointments or continued appointments to the EDAC board. But and also when we traveled to Bladen County, we saw that we need to add another tool in our tool belt for economic development for a nonprofit organization to have basically just a wider variety of reach on economic development. You guys got to meet with Fleet Genius, our industry partner of the year this year. And then had a big dedication and recommittal of the Chamber of Commerce in the Commerce Building. That was a fantastic event, and we honored Mr. Bobby White with the Longleaf Pine Award. Some great attendance. Quite a huge event we put on there. Economic development stretches across counties. Our partnership with the Foothills Regional Airport has flourished. We just got an announcement for another $50,000 grant out there, and we've also received $6 million in infrastructure this year to build more hangars, more hangar space. Jeff, if I remember right, we have 92, 93 on the waiting list for hangar space right now for aircraft.
Yes, sir.
And so that's important. We have 1,100 acres there that needs to be developed. And then we're hosting meetings about commerce, workforce development, and economic development across the state. We're trying to make sure that Caldwell County is on the forefront of that. This is just one of those meetings with our workforce partners here. I believe this is McCrary Modern, right? Bernhardt. This is Bernhardt Tour, one of our furniture factories. Furniture is still a big deal here in our region. The other thing is that we're continuing to build projects, and housing is no exception. Let me read you just a few stats here real quick on actual housing permits and construction. 2009, how many housing permits do you think were issued in Caldwell County? It was in the single digits.
Yeah, it
I was going to say it wasn't many in '09, yeah.
In 2021, it was 241. 2022, 296. 2023, 286. Already this year, for the first 4 months, it's 105. So it looks like we're going to top 300 new housing permits this year. So with that, if you're a resident and say a storm hit and a tree come down and pulled the power connection out of your home, we have to break off from doing a building inspection, say somebody's pouring concrete in, because that's considered an emergency to get electric restored right back to that house. We don't have enough folks to cover the entire county. They work in zones now, but they will pull off. So what we're asking, and our inspectors are getting older, our inspections department is asking that we create a new additional building inspector position that's self-funded by the fees themselves. So it's no new tax dollars going into it. It is only those that are using it in order to keep up with the growth in building inspections. This would be an apprenticeship type position where we bring somebody in, we teach them and build them up and run them up through the ranks. So in a few years, they'll be able to be a level 3 inspector. We're looking for that right person. Also in this department, we have our folks at Soil and Water who are doing a great job doing stream bank restoration and education across the county. And we've got multiple stream bank restoration projects we're very proud of this year. You saw some presented earlier. Our county 4-H, trying to teach our folks about agriculture and horticulture in the coming years and keep that industry going. Cultural and recreational. Now this is mostly library, but our library usage has actually went up. Our return books that people have failed to return, that's actually down because we went to a no-fine library system. And just want to sing a lot of praises to these guys. In a time when we're more and more distracted by electronics and data, we've got more and more people reading and participating at the library. And the libraries just aren't for books anymore. Here's our folks getting ready for the Christmas parade. I was looking for a picture of Krampus, but so we could kind of knock on Lenoir a little bit. But some are reading sign-ups, and even our libraries involved in our playgrounds and our parks now by having reading materials there for the kids to enjoy. And knitting. Who would have thought that multi-generational knitting would have been something you would go to your library, but it is truly kids and adults. They're enjoying that. And then games, people come and rent board games, try stuff out. It's been a huge hit for us. But here's a young man, a special needs person, learning bow and arrow in your library. Who would have ever thought, we'd be doing something like that? And of course, Touch a Truck, which is one of our most popular events that the library hosts. Debt service. Everybody always wants to know about debt service. So here's our peer group. These are all the counties that are under 99,000 in population, but more than 50,000. Caldwell County is right here. We're on the lower end of the scale, so that's really good. Just below our folks, our friends at Burke and Wilkes County. And see, Watauga County is just a little bit behind us, so that's really good. So if the further down you go, the more debt you're carrying. So we should be pretty proud of that. And I noticed that a lot of these are in the west. Something about that, just something that's, Just an observation. Here is statewide, the average of all counties, no matter their size, and here's the counties in our range, and in our ratio is almost 50% of everybody else. So you're doing pretty good. You're managing your finances well. All right, let's look at a few more highlights. Water fund is doing very well. We're asking you to increase the monthly capital charge up to $2 per meter monthly. And our water rate increase coming from our funding partners in Granite Falls and the city of Lenoir, it increased 4% per 1,000 gallons. Obviously, continuing our major capital projects list. These are a couple here, our water tank and our SCADA system, but I want to brag on our water department a lot. Does anybody recognize where this is at? No.
No.
This is Sawmills. This was the old stump dump.
Oh, yeah.
The debris,
Evergreen.
the concrete, the tires, this is our folks working very hard to turn what was basically a local landfill into an asset, taking a liability and turning it into something. This will be our future industrial park here. They've hauled out tens of thousands of tons of mulch, and we're able to recycle that into the landfill so you can drive over top of the landfill without sinking into it. All those tires are cleaned up and basically just cleaning up some of this environmental hazard that was there and turning into something that's worthwhile and creating future jobs with it, and in partnership with the town Sawmills. I think y'all remember this day because it was cold, man. I don't know how cold it was, but it felt like it was, you could see your breath freeze. Capital outlay this year, we have just a mini track we're going to replace, and then the older unit will go into general fund to be used, and then an auto flagger and a boring machine. You guys were very generous to us this year. We replaced 2 dump trucks in the current budget cycle that needed to be, because one of them is this old Ford that's in this picture here, and it no longer runs, and you can't get parts for it. So thanks to the commissioners for helping us do that. So let's talk about our partners at Fire and Rescue. Our departments are still, call volume is not decreasing for them, but membership is. It's hard to find volunteer firefighters anymore. Basically, we're to a system now where the majority of firefighters are paid something. So they're asking for additional budget increases. Here are our net increases from Valmead, Kings Creek, and Sawmills this year. And this is the total line. We're still below the 18 cents. 15 is the threshold for the fire tax. We're getting some folks starting to bump up against that. But then we've added the 5 cent rescue tax on top of that to help our folks out. We're one of the few counties in the state that do that. And then here's the total budgets estimated for the fire departments and what they'll receive in revenues. And this is based on tax collection rate, so it could be a little more than that, it could be a little bit less than that, just depends on what we bring in. And I want to thank our folks in the fire service for trying to reach out to the younger generations and build firefighters. Most everybody I know is a firefighter, their dad was a firefighter, or their uncle, or their granddad, or somebody in their family took them there. So that's important. We need to continue to do this program, and special thanks to our folks at Gamble for putting that on.
Is the money in the budget for that program this year?
So we have that community grant program.
Yep.
And that's what we'll
part
use
of
that
it.
for,
Okay.
yeah. And just here's some action shots of our folks working together, different departments learning, training together, because it takes everybody. There's no one department big enough to handle some of the issues that we have. Everybody remembers 2 Christmases ago, I think we had every firefighter in the county out on Christmas Eve night with, multiple fires, multiple broken water lines, accidents everywhere, industrial calls. I believe we did 1,400 calls in just a few hours. So it took everybody there to help out. And just some more equipment, more training. This was actually a partnership between State Emergency Management, Caldwell County Emergency Services, and the volunteer fire departments from multiple jurisdictions around the state to work on wrecks. And then we had a donated bus from our transit authority so we could work multiple scenarios, as if a bus had hit a power pole, a car hit a power pole, and then a bus. If you had multiple, people that you had to rescue or attend to, mass casualties unit, and we're able to train there. And all this funding allows us to do that. General fund revenues, let's look. Obviously, property tax is your big one, but it's only 48% of your budget. Everybody thinks property tax because that's the one they see the most, but actually, your departmental revenue is just as big as the rest of the budget. Property tax remained at 63 cents on the 100, and a continued tax-based growth, another estimated $70 million in tax-based growth over the prior year. And remember, last year was a record year that was non-reval of 170. So in 2 years, you've had $250,000 in tax-based growth. That's important, whether that's someone adding new equipment for their industry, whether you've bought a new car, or whether you've built a new home, or you bought a house and renovated it. All that is there. We estimate sales tax about 3% growth year over year. That's still great. If you guys remember pre-COVID, if you had 1.5% growth on sales tax, that was a great year. That was a good year. So during COVID, we saw double digits, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16% growth year over year, month over month. Obviously, there were some major activities going on there with COVID, but we also had a change in the sales tax structure with online sales tax being able to be collected again. Mm-hmm. So having 3% projected for the year, that's still very good. Don't think that's bad. COVID years were just a crazy anomaly, and so now we're getting closer back to a normal budget. And this is what you can see here. Probably the biggest thing that you guys want to know, what is departmental revenue? So departmental revenue is the reimbursements we get from DSS and health. Those are huge grant operations that we get in tens of millions of dollars a year. Ambulance fees, we saw almost a 25% increase in our ambulance fee collections because we went to a new provider, able to collect those bills. Building inspection fees are up, and of course our registered deeds collections. All right, looking ahead, obviously housing growth is going to continue to be an issue. A lot of people don't know the county is quite large, but there's only about 30% of the county that's actually buildable for high density development because that's where the sewer's at. And that's almost all the southern end of the county, right along with 321A and the 321 corridors. So it's a very narrow band of developable area in your county. So the rest is going to be on larger lots out in the county in more expensive homes. So affordable housing is always going to be an issue, and being able to keep up with population demands. 2022 was the first year of population growth you've seen in over a decade. And of that group, over 50% was over the age of 50. So just remember that. Cages Mountain EMS base, we just did the groundbreaking on that last week, and we're looking forward to that project. It'll be under construction for the next 15, 16 months. Courthouse, we're continuing design on courthouse and hope to be able to break ground on that next year. Emergency Operations Center, we will now be the host for all of emergency management in Western North Carolina. So if it's a multi-community agency or event, cyber attack, tornado, car chase, whatever, we will be the headquarters for the western part of the state, from essentially Salisbury all the way to the Tennessee line and Georgia lines. That will be us, and that's under design right now, and I look for us to probably break ground on that first quarter sometime next year. The Railroad Authority legislation is moving in the General Assembly to rebrand and redo the railroad and turn that liability into an asset as well. That's a big holdup for economic development. We need to get that where it needs to be. Water system improvements will continue. Evergreen Industrial Park is underway, and Foothills Regional Airport development, we're getting more and more traction over there. And we're going to start very soon the taxiway extension, and then start building hangars out there. So have more development there. And then, of course, the big existential threat on the horizon is the Charlotte Interbasin Transfer. So I think that's going to be an expensive undertaking, but we will not be alone. And there's already a coalition of over a dozen counties already ready to help fight with that. So and I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
All right, anybody have any questions?
I just want to thank staff for all they've done on this budget. I think it takes a lot of work, a lot of time. I don't think people realize the time and effort that goes into preparing a budget for a county the size that we have, and I think we sometimes don't understand that. I think we forget the complications of trying to budget for all these different things in departments. So my hat's off to our staff, county manager, finance department, all the hard work that's been done. I know that our department heads were asked to cut some things out of their budget that they had originally asked for, and I think most of them came back with some significant reductions. So I appreciate them taking the time to dig a little bit deeper and make sure that they're not asking for any more than they truly need to provide the service that they're providing. So thank our staff for all you've done with it.
All right. Anyone else?
I tell you what sort of concerns me is from everybody I've talked to, we're betting on our reval next year to pay for this budget, a big part of this budget. And, you know, we just put a big burden on our people the last reval. We pretty much raised taxes on everybody when we didn't go revenue neutral. And I just think this time around, it's just been 4 years. I really think I just don't like the idea of us betting on the reval to make up part of our budget for when it comes. You know, I just think it's time for us to tighten our belts a little bit, go back over this budget and see where we can cut to where we ain't having to bet on where we can go revenue neutral next time around instead of betting on all this revenue coming in from the reval next time around. Is what concerns me about this.
Tony, are we doing that?
The answer to that's a little bit complicated, but typically when we appropriate fund balance, if we stay below 5 million, and obviously this is kind of an estimate, you know, but if we stay below 5 million, we don't spend any of it. If we go above 5 million, we'll probably spend some above 5 million. This one's at 6.3, I think is where it landed. So there's a chance we're going to use some fund balance with this budget. You know, I as far as the reval cycle, that's kind of, you know, a philosophical question in a way. It's always been my experience in my 20 years of doing these budgets is that we do kind of go from reval to reval. You know, we get our money at the reval and then we spend it down until the next reval. Whether that's a good way to do it or a bad way to do it, I can't say, but it's just been what we've seen. I think the concept of revenue neutral is a difficult one to live up to because everything the county buys, whether that's the power bill, supplies, vehicles, paying their people, whatever it is, that goes up every year, especially the last couple of years with inflation. To hold our revenues at the same place in time while all our costs go up is just not tenable for the long term. You know, I'm trying to be as conservative as I can, and I'm always, you know,
Well, we
not
just
wanting
said
to
we
see.
were raising, I mean, we're getting more tax base and all this, so we're getting more money in
Right.
too.
We've done well in that area, but it's probably not enough to keep up with all the other cost increases we're seeing. Just the cost for people has been a big thing we've had to deal with. You know, we've had a lot of trouble retaining people, and we've increased pay to help with that. So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to see us go revenue neutral. I'd like to cut the rate below that. I mean, I'd like to see taxes low as possible, but at the same time, you can't cut the taxes unless you still got to have enough money to pay for your budget. And I can't, you know, I don't see much left to cut in this budget. We asked the department heads to weigh in, and they found us almost $1 million that we cut out. You know, I'm sure in this budget there's something that we could cut, but I don't see anything that's big that's really going to move the needle.
So we're gonna raise taxes on people again next reval, man. That's what you're saying.
Well, that won't be decided
But to
until next year.
To
but-
Jeff's point, we're not and maybe I misunderstood, we're not counting on 2025's revenue to pay for 2024's
Correct.
budget.
Right.
Because that's the way I took your question was that we were,
Well,
This is gonna get us to
be
reval.
this is gonna get us to our budget, and then are we gonna be able to stay revenue neutral, or are we gonna jack it up again as soon as it comes, when we could maybe cut some more out of here, or,
It's way
I'm not
too
saying
early.
fire people or nothing like that, but when people
Right.
retire, we can cut different places. We got opportunity now to change some positions around that we don't have, or didn't have filled. I don't know if they are now or not, so, you know, maybe we should look at some of this stuff instead of
Well,
betting on a cum card down the river with the reval.
Well, I think the point that you're getting to, and I'll say this much about it, is that we're probably going to operate in the red a little bit this year. So that has to be made up at some point. So, yeah, you do need some benefit from the reval. Now, how much that is, you know, I don't I don't pretend to know. I expect next year's tax rate will come down dramatically. If we get a big increase in tax value, that rate will come down. Will it come all the way down to revenue neutral? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. Like I said, everything goes up. If we don't let ourselves go up when we have a reval, then we're never going to be able to continue.
Tony, how's our fund balance?
At the end of last year, it was about 20%. Looking to this year, we probably are going to come close to break even. So it's probably going to be around that same amount. It's hard to say for sure because until you do the math after you close the books, you don't know for sure. But
What was the fund balance several years ago? What percentage?
The last few years is the best it's been since I've been here. It's been over 20% about 2 or 3 years now.
It was down about 8% at one time.
It had gotten down close to 8%, maybe 9% several years ago.
So what's happened at the end of our budget year, departments have not used their funds, and they've returned it back to the
Correct.
county to where that's helped us increase our fund balance. So if we have a year like what we're talking about, do you feel confident that if we spend $1 million out of our fund balance, we're okay?
Yes, certainly. We just can't spend $1 million every year.
I understand.
But for 1 year, it's not. We have plenty of reserve to cover that. It's just you can't
Give us
operate at a
that
deficit.
hard number. I mean, a lot of folks don't understand. We say 20% or 8%. What's the number?
Yeah, I really don't have that with me right now, but it was probably,
We're not going to hold you to it now.
I'm wanting to say like $13, $14 million.
There will
I mean,
be a
it's-
test afterwards.
Yeah.
13, 14, and then prior to that, where were we at number-wise?
When you say back when we were around 9, 10%,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a percentage of your budget, so I mean, probably, I would have been half that, maybe less.
6 or 7 million?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's grown, and, we have done well. What I always like to say is we budget at 100% and we spend at 95%. So we have that cushion. Now, when we appropriate fund balance, it kind of reflects that cushion. So if you don't get the people turning money in, it don't work. But we've been fortunate. Our departments have always done that.
And what's been the biggest investment, would you say, over the last couple years
In our
to
people.
our budget?
In our people, our salaries, merit pay, salary studies, just raises for people to keep good people. I think the labor market has been such that people are making more money. There's a lot more competition for employees. I know years ago, there were a lot more people wanting a job than there were jobs to go around. That's kind of flipped. Now there's like more jobs than there are people to fill them. So that just supply and demand, that makes people cost more to employ. But I think one good way of looking at it, this budget, our salaries and wages were up about $4 million. Our fund balance appropriation went up less than $2 million. So, that shows you where the money went.
But we've been as good as we can be to employees, and we've tried and done what I think we've been real good to them. But sometimes we got to think about the people too. Like my mom's sitting there drawing $1,300 a month, and she's going to have to pay more property taxes and stuff too. I mean, what about all these people? And they decide if they're going to eat, or they're going to buy their medicine, or they're going to pay their taxes at the end. I mean, probably $50 or $100 ain't going to make as much difference to most of us in here, but there's a lot of people it does.
I
And
agree.
we got to look at. These people elect us to look after their money too.
I certainly feel for those people, and I would invite anybody that's listening that's in that situation to speak to Mr. Angle, our tax collector. He's got some programs. If you're over a certain age or an income threshold, you can get some relief on your taxes, and be happy to explain that to anybody that qualifies, what they can do. We certainly want to look out for those people that are in that situation.
And Tony, to Mike's question and his point, the majority of the increase has been through our taking care of our employees and salaries and benefits and things of that nature.
Correct.
We haven't had a lot of stuff outside of that. We've had some positions at DSS, we've had some positions at Restart, but most of that's been funded from outside grants and other things. But
Correct.
there's not been a whole lot that's truly hit our budget over the last several years, other than salary increases. So when you start
Correct.
cutting, you either have to, the only way to do, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but the only way you're going to do that is to cut a service. is to cut, we added a lot of money the last couple years ago to our environmental health. So we got way behind on permitting, we got way behind on, those things, and that, we had to spend money to get that up to speed so we could provide that service. So if we cut service, then we're gonna get fussed at because we ain't able to provide the service. So it is a tough balance, and I agree with what Commissioner Branch is saying. I think we're reaching a point in our society in general where things are getting tougher and tougher. I've got a son that's 22 years old who wants to buy a piece of property or wants to buy a home. Well, he's got a really good job and making pretty daggone good money, but there's no way he can go buy a home today. There's no way it's going to be difficult for our younger generation to be able to afford homes and things of that nature. So to Commissioner Branch's point, I think we do have to really look at areas where we can tighten the belt. And I'm convinced that there is probably some areas we can find a little bit. And every little bit helps.
Right.
To your point, there might be a little bit here, there might be a little bit there, but every little bit helps. And I think we are. Right. I'm in favor of this budget this year, but I don't want to go into next year. We got to make some tough decisions next year of how do we tighten our belt and get through the future, move into the future.
Agreed.
Well, this last reval, I tried to tell people, your property value is worth more, your property value, you're worth more now. But ultimately, we raised their taxes on them. I mean, we're the ones that said, we're going to take this reval and we're going to keep this money and you're going to pay more money. So we ultimately did it. And I just think it's time to give the people a break too. And we need to figure out some way to where we ain't just planning on using all this money for our spending purposes. Do we need a courthouse right now? We're working right now. Why can't we remodel a building we just bought, and stuff like that? I don't understand some of this money we're spending here myself. I just think there's ways to not spend it. We should have some money coming back, off of debt stuff. And, I think we need to look at it and take a hard look at this before we pass this budget for next year when we're going to raise taxes and take people's money.
I can tell you this much, next year's budget, I'll do everything possible to help you get it as low as possible. I can't look in the future and say you can go revenue neutral or you can't, but I promise you to give me my best effort to get it as low as possible.
If you could give it last year, you can give it this year. We can go back and redo this thing somehow.
Well, and I think we're probably to a point where we're about as lean as we can get to with this budget is what I understand, because we're already looking at hitting fund balance for possibly $1 million. But just to go back to the point of a lot of increases, I know our contributions in state retirement system have increased. I know our health care costs have increased, and those are all things that we don't really have a lot of control over. It gets passed along to us that we have to budget for. And then, who would ever thought that some of the things, an ambulance remount now for an ambulance, Mr. Barlow's like $300,000. You used to could buy the whole daggone thing for that, right? So
I bought them for $125,000.
Fire trucks have gone up to $650,000 for a fire truck. And I remember the first one I helped raise by selling barbecue chicken for, we bought the thing for $65,000 and was very happy to get it. So there's
600 gets you a basic one, by the way.
That's right.
So everything's gone up, which is reflected in our budget in a sense. And I'm all about holding the line too. I got an elderly father that reminds me routinely he pays too much in taxes. And I understand that. And so we want to look at it more in depth next year. And I know, and just so people are not confused, but the reval comes out in the first part of the year, then we start gearing our budget to what those numbers are.
Correct.
And so then we approve the budget and the budget ordinance for next year based upon the revow that comes out.
Right.
So our tax division is working on that revow now, and it's an ongoing process. And one other thing and point to mention is, yes, 3.5 years ago we went up, but that was the first revow we had had in over 8 years. We had pushed that. So now we're trying to do it every 4 years so we can be more equitable and more fair with all of that too. So. And early numbers, sounds like some of our commercial properties are what's going to be increasing this time more than the residential side. So, but I too have a son that's getting ready to build a home, an 1,800 square foot home at $400,000. So it ain't cheap no more.
Certainly not.
Nothing's
Whatever
cheap.
you're doing.
Everything's gone up, and I think people know that. People understand that things have gone up, and it's not our fault, you know?
But you know, if you're in business, I mean, everybody that's in here that's ever been in business, if it's time to cut stuff, you can cut stuff out. You can make something happen if you want to make it happen.
And we can. And, you know, our librarian's sitting here, we can close libraries, but we'll see what happens then, right? I didn't give her a heart attack, but you know,
My staff all gets passed out.
it goes hand in hand with services being cut to reduce the outflow of money, whatever that is. So.
Well, several years ago, we added a shift of deputies. We could cut a shift of that. We added a shift of telecommunicators, so we could cut that. I mean, there's things we cut, but then when you pick up the phone for a deputy or for an ambulance or call 911, I mean, we added things several years ago, and we can go back and cut those things out. You think about the fire service. I mean, they have to provide fire service, and there's very little volunteer. Now they're having to pay. I mean, we understand what's going on in your communities. I mean, that you guys have got a tough job out there, and I greatly appreciate that. But, you know, I think, you know, the departments this past, you know, they cut $1 million. And my challenge is that, okay, we've got this year coming, sharpen your pencil a little bit, and let's see if we can't get that down, that $1.3 million to something a whole lot less.
And one of the things that, and Donald can explain this more too, is, you know, we got hit with the hold harmless money this year from the state for Medicaid that we've never had to pay.
That was
1.5 million. That
Right.
is,
It was a surprise.
I mean, there's your
Yeah.
million right there that we're going to end up spending out of fund balance.
that's true.
It's the
Right there
1.5 million.
is
So
the difference.
there's some things we just can't control. I mean, you know, when you have Medicaid, we have to provide that. It's a law. We have to do it.
And
But
you've not profited, but the county has not had any expense
We've
on
benefited.
that. Yeah, in that arrangement where the state took our sales tax to pay for that. But as we all know, healthcare costs have accelerated dramatically.
Yep.
And so because that rising healthcare cost has outpaced the growth in sales tax, even though you've had record years of sales tax growth, and it's because you've had more folks retiring, more folks needing Medicaid and Medicare. They don't have long-term health care plans other than that, and so the taxpayer pays for it.
Yep.
So the feds pay their share, the state pays its share, and the county has to pay its share. You have no say-so in that. You took the deal, it's probably saved the county overall $25 to $22 million on the back of the napkin.
Yep.
But this year, because of the rising cost, and we saw sales tax returning back to normal, you can't complete that. You
They
know,
put
and
it-
if
yeah,
if you had fewer people retiring and you had a younger population that was all of working age, and we could fill, you know, the 6,000 jobs in this valley that are open, it's almost 7 now, I think, then it's a different story. But we're not, you know, we are an aging population, so.
I think we are assuming that the economy is going to continue to grow, and the tax revow next time is going to be significantly higher, but none of us have a crystal ball, unfortunately. We can enter into another 2008 and the whole bottom fall out, and people's houses not be worth half of what they're worth right now, but you still got to provide the same amount of services that you're providing now for the citizens. So
I think that's a good point, Commissioner Wilkie. In 2011, when we did revow in Caldwell County, our revenue neutral was a tax increase. So imagine trying to explain that one to people. It goes the other way too. is what I'm saying.
One other thing just to mention is, my axiom in working on this budget was that people and their salaries were off limits. We would cut other things, but we would not let go of anybody, and we would not cut anybody's pay. And I feel like we've taken it as tight as we can while keeping that rule in place. I feel like to go any deeper, significantly deeper to make a difference, then we'd have to go into that. And I didn't feel like that was the wise course of action, and I don't think you guys do either, but if you do, we can look at that. But I think, that was the message I gave to department heads was that we want to keep these raises, we want to keep these people that we've worked so hard for the last couple of years. What can you do to help us reduce the budget and make that possible? And that's when they gave us almost $1 million in cuts.
Well, if we don't take care of our people, there's not going to be anybody to provide that service.
Correct.
So I absolutely agree with you. And here's the thing. What we're forgetting about is we're still behind. We're still behind other counties from what we, from the region of what's being paid. We're still in the bottom of that group. Every time, we were in the mid range, and now we're in the bottom range, and then we do something, we fix it, and then we get back to the mid range, now we're back in the bottom again. So
Seems like every time we get up, we get knocked back down.
that's right. So, and I want the employees to know that we're doing everything we can to try to combat that, but sometimes it's hard for them to understand when we can't do certain things. But I think the last few years, we've been very gracious to our employees with benefits and salary increases and merit raises. Commissioner Branch was a big supporter of the merit raise process, and I think that's been one of the best things we've put in place. It rewards our employees for doing a good job, and I think that's a great thing. But it's a costly venture when you start getting into salaries and benefits. Owners out there, business owners, know that your highest cost is in your staff. And it's no different here in our Caldwell County. And if we want good people, we have to pay them. If we want to keep good people, we have to pay them. Because I promise you, they can walk out of our door right now and go to any county around us and make more money. That's it. Pretty much any position in this county government, Caldwell County government, they can literally walk across the county line and make more money. So these people are staying here because they want to be here. They're staying here because of their family, their friends. They grew up here. They want to remain a part of this community. And we have to keep that in mind, that it's not going to get cheaper as we go forward.
And we're not raising taxes on them all the time.
Do we still have some employees less than the $15 an hour? I mean, that was kind of a mark that was set statewide, school system and various things, but I know.
I think we have some part-time people below that.
Yes. We have just this year, we passed, I think all of our full-time staff passed $15 an hour. Before COVID, the median wage was about $17.42 in North Carolina for a living wage. Now that's at almost $22 an hour.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we're nowhere near that, and I don't know that we're going to get there yet. Another interesting point, and Josh, you can correct me on the numbers, is that on the property tax exemption for elderly, I believe the current numbers, if you bring in less than $35,000 a year, then you can get your taxes reduced. That number's going up to almost $38,000, $37,900. Our paramedics don't start off at that. So just think about that.
Right.
We don't even pay our own people what's considered the poverty line.
You ask any business owner, he'll tell you that he's paying a lot more money today to keep his health and to get help. Also, one thing to note is, it ain't been just a few years ago, and this is embarrassing to say this, but we had county employees who were having to get benefits from DSS and the health department. They actually qualified for benefits. I don't know if that's the case today, but there was one time where that was happening pretty regularly. And I don't know if again, I don't know where we are there today, but I hope that we don't have our county employees who are having to reach out to DSS and the health department for services for their family.
We do. Also, you have several representatives from your fire departments here tonight. If you would like to invite them to say anything about their request increases in funding, I can bring
Well,
up that slide.
I'll ask if any one of you want to. We're not going to make you. But if somebody wants to come up here and brag on your fire department and everything you're doing, you're certainly welcome to. We know you're doing a lot. And just quite frankly, our EMS staff couldn't function without you.
Correct.
We know that.
Yeah.
I've been there, so I understand it very well, so, but, yeah, come on, chief.
He got dressed up tonight, so
Yeah,
we're going to
we
put
need
him
to
up
let
here.
these chiefs come up. And,
Yeah, tell us what this volunteerism or lack of is doing to you guys, because I know if it's in one department, it's all across, and I think the people need to understand what you guys and ladies are dealing with in your communities.
Well, my name's Stephen Watson. I'm with Kings Creek Fire Department. We're going to go up because, just like you said, volunteers are pretty much a thing of the past. We're going to go to 24-hour staffing. The quicker response time leads equals more lives saved. Quicker, one paid member per NCDOI equals 3 volunteers. So that'll help us on our what is it?
ISO rating.
Yep.
We have less volunteers living close to the station, or even in the district. Increased part-time pay to our $1 an hour, which Caldwell County and us we're well below $15 an hour. It's a part-time job. Providing better tools and equipment. KCFD plans to increase staffing from 10 hours a day to 24 hours per day. 24-hour staffing will consist of 1 part-time employee working per shift. Pay staff will be paid $14 an hour. That's with an added cost. Right now it's 13. Let's see here. In 2020, we bought turnout gear. Do you know how much turnout gear is?
About 6,000.
Tell us.
In 2020, it was $12,340.
Yep.
The new quote for 2024 is $19,900.
Is that per?
That's per one.
So went up
set.
$7,000 in 1 year.
In 3 years.
3 years,
From 2020 to 24.
Okay.
but, yeah,
2023 is $3,682. So, and we have to replace 5 sets per year because they're only good for 10 years. NFPA. Our air packs, 2020, air packs was $6,008. In 2023, this is for one, 2023, $9,850. There's a minimum of 4 on a truck. So that's a 39% increase. Our trucks in 2020, you could get a truck for $289,000. Basic, everything right now. 2023, $900,000. That's a 73 to 80% increase. Our fuel cost. Our fuel cost is, everything goes up. Our fuel cost, it hurts us all. The utilities, 2021, 2022, we spent $5,200 in fuel cost. And 2022, 2023, we spent $7,200. The reason requesting our funding here is for staffing. Somebody will be there 24/7. Somebody's going to be there. When you pick up that phone call 911, somebody will be there. There won't be no second alarms, nothing like that. Just like you said a while ago, eliminating the telecommunicators. At what cost? If you're going to start cutting stuff, what cost is that going to be to the public? And everybody, fusses and gripes about taxes until you start cutting stuff, and then they're going to blame you for the death of a loved one. A property valued with our increase, which is posted over there, a property valued in Kings Creek Fire District at $233,009.71 would only see an increase of $10 per month. So, KCFD would like to thank our citizens for the support in our organization. We'd appreciate your support in the future. And we did have an annual meeting last August, and our community are the ones who voted on this, who wanted 24/7 coverage, because they want to make sure somebody is there. And I don't blame them, I do too. So, any questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I think you're feeling the same thing everybody is instead of cutting staff, you're having to add staff.
Absolutely. You know,
Because the
volunteers.
demand's there.
Volunteers are down. And just like you said, you go across the bridge, you go up the mountain, you're gonna get a pay raise. So it's hard to find part-time people, but when we do got them, we need to hold on to them.
And y'all do a great job. We're
Yeah.
We try our
super
best.
appreciative to what you guys do out there. And to what Chairman Church said earlier, you know, not only we're appreciative from an individual standpoint, but the county appreciates you guys because we literally could not do it. EMS could not function the way it functions today without you. That, not just your department, but that's all of our departments. They're a necessity.
Absolutely.
They're not an option. They're a necessity.
Exactly.
Right.
And you know, you said, a while ago, you had the PowerPoint up there. We train with our neighboring departments. You know, it's to the point now where, you know, we have to help each other. We have to rely on it.
Right.
So if we have somebody there 24/7, then it's going to be a blessing to not only Kings Creek community, but the communities that join us too.
Correct.
You know, a lot of people don't realize this, but every fire department has their own board.
Absolutely.
It's not, I mean, they bring it before us, but every community has their own board of peers, so they are the ones that decide this
Yep.
stuff. Your board gets together and decides what you
Well,
need
our
and how to raise it.
community voted on
The
this.
community, yeah,
Yep.
every community.
Yeah, it was in our board. The community voted on it, and we had a vote last August, and we're just here to see it through.
I want to thank you too, but it's worth noting that you're trying to provide one person at the station for that 24-hour coverage. That one person can respond to equipment, get it checked en route, but to Commissioner LaBrosa's point, then the other volunteers have to come along to be able to augment and support
Absolutely.
that. So, you know, as an example, a car accident on Highway 18 in the Kings Creek community, the firefighter that's there can respond to that equipment, but it takes a whole host of people to do extrication and get somebody out.
Yeah, with somebody being at the station, you don't have to pass the car wreck.
Right.
Or
You know,
to get-
and
to go
that's
get it.
true too. You're getting a vehicle there.
Yeah.
But we're still relying on volunteer fire
Absolutely.
departments and volunteer firefighters. And so anybody that hears this is a public service announcement. If you want to help your community and be an impact in your community, go join your volunteer fire department.
Absolutely.
They can use you somewhere.
Absolutely.
And we advocate for that. And so, but we appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
And I think I seen Mr. Barlow coming. He's always got something to talk about. The Valmead Fire and Rescue.
First of all, I want to thank the commissioners for all you do to support our local fire and rescue departments throughout the county, because without your support, we all know that it would be a different world, and it would be a bigger burden to the taxpayers without the local fire departments, the local volunteers that we have. So we're trying to provide that service for our communities, to help the community, and to keep, as Commissioner Branch said, from raising taxes. I want to talk a few minutes, and I won't bore you with a lot of details, and I know Mr. Watson hit a lot of the costs and how they've, expanded through the years. But at Valmead, we're a little different in our budget each year and what it takes to run our department. Valmead Fire Department runs on a budget currently of less than $200,000 a year. And of that 200, and I'm saying 200, the actual number is about 178,624. So of that 178,000, 41% of that is now dedicated to payroll on a volunteer department. And, to echo Mr. Watson's comments, it's not strictly a volunteer fire department anymore. We've had to go out and provide that service and pay for that service for the community so that when you dial 911, you've got an engine coming. And I want to commend the commissioners for adding emergency services and the response from emergency services when we need them, because in Valmead's district, that is a huge help for us to know on a house fire, on a extrication of a vehicle, that once that lead truck gets there, we have personnel coming from the county. And luckily, where we're positioned in the county, coming very quickly. Southern ends of the county and way northern end of the county, it's harder for those folks to get there just because of the logistics part of it. But, in Valmead's district, we're getting the response in less than 5 minutes, and that's a critical time. Just to speak a minute about the fire tax, currently at that 178 number, we're at a 10 cent. And we're asking to go to 15 cent this year. Couple reasons. Number one, 1 cent in our district only creates $16,000 in revenue. So in the $16,000, and I think, Tony, you can attest to this, but we're looking at 90% of our number to be collected.
97.
Is it 97? Okay. So really of that 16,000, we're not looking at 16,000. Best case scenario, we're round numbers, 15 grand. In the 15,000, the 3 cent will, that's 45. We're looking that with that 45,000, we need to provide a weekend service to where right now we have 8 a.m. to 4 during the day, Monday through Friday, of paid people at Valmead. At 4 p.m., we're starting to gain some of our volunteer folks to come back that would relieve the folks that are on the payroll. So we're wanting to put on a weekend service for the community with that extra $45,000. We're also looking to raise the rescue tax. We're currently at 0.02. We want to go to 0.03, and that's reflected in that $45,000. Last year, Valmead Fire ran 474 calls, and I'm glad to say that every single time we had people show up. We have a great staff out there as far as chiefs, officers, and to give a shout out to all of our volunteers. They do a fantastic job. But to keep this service provided, we have to go to the weekends. We have to keep providing that service from 8 to 4 during the week. And as I said in the beginning, that's over 40% of our budget. Now, we also have a new tanker that is supposed to be delivered in March 2025. As you know, some of y'all know, I know Robbie and Randy, y'all are very familiar with how long it takes to get a fire truck ordered now, and this one's been ordered for about 18 months. When that truck arrives, that's $525,000. So now we're looking to pay for a new truck. We're looking to run our department, buy our turnout gear, buy our air packs on less than $200,000. And I'm just telling you, it's tough. It's very tough. So, again, I want to thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for your support. And just know that this money is being well spent, and it is providing a service to the county that our citizens deserve. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Chief
on.
Wilson's coming.
Don't better tell me where my fire tax money is going.
We tax you and you and me. Don't forget, we tax me too.
That's right.
Again, I'll be brief. They've covered a lot of the detail, but thank you for having us. Let us come and tell our story just briefly and tell about our department. As you know, we asked for a tax increase last year and this year, which is uncommon for sawmills. But as I mentioned earlier, last year, when we started this process and we hired us a chief position, filled a chief position, we knew that our goal was to get full-time staffing at Sawmills Fire. And so this time last year, we had, besides the chief, we had 3 full-time people there, so we had 1 per rotating shift for the 24 hours. So to get to our goal of having 2 full-time people per shift, we added 3 additional people this year. And that's the reason for the penny increase on the fire and a penny increase on the rescue. Because that, for us, that generates about $90,000 total, about 45 per penny, 45, 48 per penny. So that gives us enough money to fund most of 3 people. Not quite, but most of 3 people. This time when we hired, we did hire people that we didn't require experience this time. So we hired in a little less money, but also now we have to send them for training and certification. So we still use some of our part-time people to fill in those daytimes when they're going to school during the day or whatever their shift requires. So that's the reason for the increase for sawmills. It gives us 2 people, 24 hours. So when we ride out at night, they're not by themselves going in the homes and places that they go. And also another thing, I don't have facts and figures on it, but we run a lot of calls 2 at a time. We have a call while we're still on the call. We have that second call. We do that quite often. I think it runs in about the 15% range,
Yep.
which is quite a bit.
Yep.
So what they'll do, sometimes they'll run, if there's an additional person at the station, they'll maybe respond the first squad or the engine, and then they'll run a second truck just in case they catch a call the next time. So one thing we've done at Sawmills in the last couple of years, and we kind of followed a pattern from another department, is when we bought our last engine, was a rescue squad truck, and we call it Squad 40. We run it on almost everything we have, so the men are outfitted and fully, whatever call they have, they can handle with that truck. Seems a little bit odd to send that to a house call, but once they get there, if they have another call or something else, they're prepared and they're turnout gear ready and they're ready to run. So that helps eliminate the need for that second truck coming out sometimes.
Yeah.
So we've done that. So that's how we've tried to grow in the last couple of years with the full-time staffing. So again, that'll give us 2 per shift. Then we have a paid captain now, which works a full-time shift. And he takes in for the PTO time, he takes in vacation, whatever they do, or when there's an extra job to do, part-time, he's there for that. So we have that, and still have a lot of part-time people that we use occasionally as we need those. So that's the reason for our budget. And so we have a larger budget than some, not nearly as much as others, but we do have a little bit larger budget. And we watch it closely. We spend it as frugal as we can. And it's like the same heartburn you have up here. It's your employees, and that it just takes a lot of money for that. And we've got good employees. And again, they can cross the bridges and make more money. So they want to work in this area. So we're glad to have them for that. And I would say that, and all we say about paid and volunteer, again, you have to commend our volunteers for what they can give. We have to always commend those volunteers. We have a pretty good number of volunteers. The reality is they're aging out. The young are not coming for that, but we do have a good number of that. And without those, we couldn't make it at all. We'd be that way. Also, our neighboring departments, none of our immediate neighbors are out here, but we work together really well on mutual aids and automatic aids. We're always sending trucks there. They're sending trucks to us. So that helps keep down the need for personnel on fire alarms and things like that. That's maybe just a couple people call. So that's the reason for our increase. We're well aware of where our tax rate is. We do have board meetings every month, and we're constantly, our treasurer's, senior, and every month he brings it to us. We know where we're at financially. We're solid. We're good. We have money in reserves. But this tax increase this year would almost fully fund us for a year without having to go into reserves. And we don't want to have money we don't need, but we'll be sure we're fully funded and not mislead ourselves into what we can or can't do. So that's the reason for the sawmills tax increase this year. We know where we're at. Hopefully we'll not be back for a while, because our goal has been met to get the full-time staffing to 2 per shift with a small person. So.
I want to add something while you're there too, and it's not worth noting for all of our volunteer departments, but many of them have spent this additional money for better equipment and more personnel, which in turn reduces their ISO rating. And I think Sawmills maybe just went through a rating and got that reduced, as many of our departments have. And what that does is it saves you homeowners insurance costs. So many times you see maybe an increase in your fire tax, but you see a decrease in your homeowners because your fire department's better prepared and better equipped to be able to meet your needs. So I wanted to make that a mention, and I think countywide, about all of our departments have reduced their fire rates tremendously.
Since I've been here, I think it's almost every
Yeah,
department.
we're at a 4.
Yeah,
Straight
straightforward.
And to get that, it's a little different than it was. We had a straight 4 prior, but when they came this time, if you're over 1,000 feet from a hydrant, you had to do a water shovel.
Right.
A water haul.
Yes,
So some of
sir.
our residents actually picked up a higher insurance bill
Yeah.
temporarily till we got it
Yeah.
lowered back down, because my mother was one of them.
Right.
Hers fell right in the line, and she got pinged for about $80 more,
Yeah,
and then on one property. And then she just told me today, she said, I got a refund back because they lowered it back down to 40.
Right.
I think she got $70-some back.
So-
So the seniors would,
and that's big, and
That's
it's
big.
important for our
Yeah.
residents too, that
It is big.
our fire departments, and it takes hours and training and all the things that goes into that. People just do not realize. So I just challenge people, go join.
Yeah.
Just join up, be a part of the solution, right?
I tell them all the time to come in the store. If they
Yeah.
see something, I say, go, we'll take you.
So Greg,
Well,
one of the things I was going to mention, and I think some of y'all, we've all hit on a little bit, but not picking on the fact that you're a little older than some of these other guys.
A lot older than all of them.
Yeah. You know, you go
Been a
back from
long
the
time.
time you first got in the fire department. I remember back in the 80s when I was involved in the fire department, and the siren, the whistle would go off, and we'd have a house fire, we'd have a wreck, and they'd be almost too many people there. We'd be tripping over each other. And now, we could handle pretty much any call that came up with just our department. Now, that's almost impossible. And I noticed that over the last several years, that seems to be increasing. And I think you made a point a while ago, is that, you're dependent upon the agency that's closest to you, mutual aid.
Yeah.
And now when they dispatch on a house fire, they automatically dispatch 3 agencies, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 3
Yeah,
and
because-
more. Some of them have more.
Yeah, because we don't, the volunteerism just isn't there anymore. You don't have that person showing up, and obviously you can't afford, from a revenue standpoint, you can't afford to staff a full-blown,
Oh, no.
full-time,
No.
24/7 fire department. So it's going to continue to be a challenge, I guess, is what I'm
Well, in
getting
the
to.
Sawmills district, we have very few people that actually work in the district during the daytime.
Correct.
That's available to run call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big problem.
I remember when I was growing up in the fire service, they would let us leave work. If I worked, I worked on a farm growing up, and we could leave work and go to the call,
You just talk
You can't
about
do
age.
that anymore.
The
And I
sad
was gonna
reality is
say-
when we call for extra help and a second alarm,
Yep.
they get me.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
this is not where we're headed.
Yeah.
But it's the reality is what we get,
That's right.
I told
It's
Chief
worth
Well a few
noting
times.
that a lot of our employers don't allow employees to leave
Correct.
now, because they're so streamlined, and if this fella leaves or this young lady leaves to go fight a fire, then they can't function
That
properly.
slows down the whole
So,
process, yeah. So
a
it's just
lot
a
of
different day.
folks don't allow that anymore, so.
It's a challenge for all of us.
Yes,
It's
sir.
painful for everybody. So
Yeah.
we're right there with the rest of it.
But we
Anyway,
appreciate you.
we appreciate what you can do and help
Yes,
us.
sir.
Thank you, guys.
So
Thank you,
this
Greg.
time, we'll not be back next year because we're going to cap out and if we ain't careful. But this does fully fund us where our goal is to be, so.
Right, yes, sir.
Keep up the great work.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Greg.
Thank you, guys.
All
All
right.
these guys have talked, I would like to clear up something too. Over the past several years, I've had a lot of people say, are you guys going to become a countywide fire department? Let me just clean that rumor up right now. Hell no.
That's
We
right.
ain't doing that.
That's
We want to support you all we can, because we don't want no
And we need,
part of taking over any fire departments.
and as we go forward, I'm going to challenge the commissioners, because we're going to have to look for more ways to help you. I don't know what it looks like today, but we're going to have that conversation. We're going to have to do more to keep you there, because
Yeah.
when they dial 911, whether it's a medical, whether it's a house fire, what it is, they expect you to show up. So we're going to have that conversation.
I can promise you're getting a bargain right now.
Oh, yeah.
You daggone right we
No,
are.
we are.
We know we are, but we're going to have that conversation sooner than later
Yes, sir.
of what else we can do for you.
All right.
Well, it's all about a balance.
Yeah.
And I sit back there, I sit here and I look at Ashley there in our EDC, and about all the economic development. And that's what we've got to continue to push, because the more economic development, the more housing that's being built, then that generates that tax dollar to where we don't have to put that burden on the taxpayer. So keeping that engine running on all 8 cylinders and really adding to our tax base, that's what the key is. And that's what this county has done over the years. We've continued to add to our economic base, increasing our tax base to where we can afford some of these things that we have spent over the years. And along with the sales tax, the point of sale sales tax, there's a lot of things that have helped us. We've got to continue to work on that to where we maximize our benefit there, to where then we can help with the services and provide the services for all of our citizens. You know, I've been on this commission for a while, and I believe that I've been as frugal as I can be. Maybe not everybody agrees, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree. But I know that this county is much better off because of the group of us and our leadership than what we've been in the past. And isn't that what it's all about? Providing a good place for our folks to live, to work, to worship, to recreate, all those things that go into Caldwell County. And we're so proud of that. We've made some missteps? Sure. Well, don't we all? But I think the bottom line is I think we have a better county. I think that we are a conservative county. There's a lot of other counties that have a lot of wants. We don't get a lot of wants. We take care of our needs. I can tell you about a lot of counties that spend money like crazy. Well, we've never been able to do that. Not that we even would want to do that, because we just don't have the resources. And I think this commission and past commissions have taken that into consideration along with our leadership. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Donald, for the leadership. Thank you to department heads for your leadership. Yeah, do we have our work cut out for us this time around? Sure. But we can do it. We can rise to the occasion. This is not the first or won't be the last time we come to a last year of a revalve where we just kind of glide in. It's happened before. It'll be okay. 3 years ago, 2,500 signs were put out against me and Donnie Potter about the tax increase. That hurt. But when I had an opportunity to talk to the citizens one-on-one, to explain to them, most of them agreed, some of them didn't, and that's okay. That's democracy, that's America, and it's okay. But know this, that I will be as frugal as possible, but I want to make sure we take care of our citizens, to take care of that aging population that we have out there, those folks that need our services. We're going to be there for you, and we're going to take care of our employees, and we're going to do the right thing. So I approve this. I will approve this budget with the challenge that our county manager and our deputy county managers and our department heads will go back, sharpen the pencil, and if there's something that we can cut and look at, then we'll do that, and we'll be okay. All right, that's all. That's enough.
All right. Very well. Was there anybody else that wanted to speak on behalf of the fire departments or any other part of the budget in this public hearing? All right. I'm old Lenoir, going once, going twice. Do I hear a motion that we come out of the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. And then that brings us to our adoption of the fiscal year budget ordinance. And what we've been discussing for a good little bit here. And so, do you have anything else further you need to say?
I do want to commend Kings Creek, though. They kept us apprised of their budget process throughout the whole. They let us know every time they were having a meeting. They gave us consistent updates. They were easy to ask questions of. So just kudos to them for the extra effort they went to with their community.
Yes, sir. All right. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'd like to make a motion to approve the fire department's budget, but I'm gonna vote against the fiscal year budget.
So can we pull that out separately, or?
No, it's all together.
We have to do it all under
It's an
the
ordinance
budget
together,
ordinance.
You have to set the tax rate at one time.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, but duly noted that you're supporting the fire departments.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So do I hear a motion that we adopt this 2024-25 fiscal year budget ordinance? I'll make the motion that we adopt it. And do I have any other discussion or comment on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
And so that budget amendment carries, the ordinance does, 4-1 vote. So I appreciate everyone's opinions and presentations this evening, and all the staff and the work that went into getting us to this point. And we leave that, as Commissioner LaBrosse said, a challenge going into next year, because we're going to have to sharpen the pencils and try to be as frugal as we can with all the things that are going on. So, but we do appreciate everyone's position in that. So next would be a resolution to adopt our 24-25 fee schedule. I think we've had some looks at that pretty in depth. And do you want to say anything about those?
Well, as you saw, your departmental revenues was 24% of your total revenue. So those are fee-based, user-based fee revenues, and so it's half as much as your tax base. So think about it like that. You can change the schedule fees throughout the year. In the past, cities and counties did it by ordinance, and so you have to go back to the whole ordinance process. School government asked us to change all that, and so did LGC, because as the economy changes, you can change your schedule fees. You can be a little bit more nimble. So if you wanted to change that, every month, it's feasible to do that. But we don't do that unless there's some type of emergency or there's a law change throughout the state. So your schedule of fees there reflects, what it costs us for services in the health department, what it costs us to run copies, fire inspections, building inspections, all of those things, water rates. And so you adopt those by resolution with your annual budget.
All right. So I'll make a motion that we adopt the 24-25 fee schedule. Is there any other comment or discussion in that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries as well. Next, we have with us Jonathan Cook, and he's going to come and speak to us just a little bit about ambulance franchise agreement with Miller Transport, at which point we'll have to have a public hearing. But I was going to allow you, Jonathan, just give us a little background before we open that public hearing up.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all having us again. Just a little bit of background story. I did have Dr. Lowry here. I think
He had to run out.
Step out. Yeah, had to step out. He was going to come in and help as well talk. But a little bit of background knowledge is North State Medical was initially contracted, and with a franchise agreement, they have talked to the hospital. They've approached them and are backing out effective at the end of this month. So they're no longer going to be there to be doing transports out of the facility. With the increased call volume still on the 911 side, we feel it's the best interest to get someone back else in there. Miller Transportation, Miller Ambulance Company. This is Gary Miller. He's the owner of the company. He's been in contact and talks with both us and as well as Caldwell Memorial Hospital, or UNC Caldwell now. He's talked with Dr. Lowry and Heather Foss both. They're working towards getting a contract together as well to adopt, to allow them to come in there. Miller has pretty extensive background history. I've actually used him before when I was actually shift captain on the truck, and we were too busy at the time to take people out of town to Charlotte or Baptist. I've actually had our dispatch call them and used them before, so they're pretty well known in our area. They have some, you're operating out of Hickory, correct, with Fry Hospital or Fry Duke Life Point, and several others. And I'll let Mr. Miller give you a little bit of background on the company as well.
Well, good evening. My name is Gary Miller, Miller Ambulance Service. The corporate name is Cape Fear Regional Transport. I won't go into all the details. Miller is a DBA of that. We started the ambulance portion in 2016. We're headquartered in Yadkinville. I have a 7,000 square foot facility. Come December, we'll have been in that, I can't believe it, 5 years. I built it It's my beach home, my mountain home, my retirement home. We are an S Corp, so I am for profit. So we need to be transporting people. My trucks really can't be sitting around. We have, I have one truck that is contracted to Northern Regional Hospital. My medical director is Dr. Jason Etzel. He happens to be the chief medical director there. We put that truck on their dock for 12 hours to do exclusive for Northern Regional, with a lot of their traffic going down to a higher level of care down to Winston-Salem. We've just signed a contract to do the same thing with Fry Regional Hospital, and we put the truck on site May 13th. And about the end of April is when Caldwell had reached out to us to come up and talk with them, meeting with their COO tomorrow to finalize that contract. We will put a truck on their site to do exclusive for them. And of course, the franchise is needed to do point-to-point within the county. My business model was based on what we call, or I call, long distance, meaning we would depart the county of pickup and pick up that part of the market that EMS couldn't do. You know, most counties do not want their trucks leaving unless they have to, because when that truck leaves the county, they go down a truck, and all the others have to move in to cover. So that's the market that we do. Don't really have a lot of other things to share unless you have some questions for me. I will say that with Caldwell, it's a UNC facility. I am an East Carolina alum.
Dad, I was going to ask you, because
And
it makes sense that because you
And there's a pirate on the back of each of my trucks.
Yep, yep.
I have one of my sons is a Tar Heel, and I told him, I don't know how I'm going to do it, son. I might have to paint one of my trucks Carolina blue, but I'll put a pirate on there somewhere.
Right, yeah.
Are there any questions of me, gentlemen?
I'd like to mention Dr. Lowry's been heavily involved in this process of trying to get the contract, and they're very close on contract negotiations. We should have that. This requires 2 readings, by the way. You'll have this again at the next month. So we should have that in hand by then. And it's been very positive from both the hospital standpoint and the county's. Just really good working relationship so far. We look forward to having them here.
All right. Well, with that presentation, I'll...
Hold on.
Dr. Snyder's in the back, too, if you have any questions of him. He may... You have any comments? Our medical director? Sorry.
Oh, you just wanting to hide back there.
He can hide behind a fence post now. He's lost so much weight.
Yeah, I know.
You look great, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll kind of speak for, Dr. Lowry stepped out, but, and also Mountain Emergency Physicians. As you guys know, we staff the emergency department at Caldwell. I think this is great. We need this. I think having some stability within this kind of market, as Mr. Miller was saying, is extremely important. And I think as some of you and I have talked privately, that necessarily didn't always exist over the last year or so. And so from everything I've been involved with, I know Jonathan's been very involved with, Trevor's been very involved with this process. I know Dr. Lowry's been instrumental in making this happen. I think this is a really positive step forward. As many of you know, I started as a paramedic in Maryland, where by law, under COMAR, Maryland's regulation, 911 ambulances cannot do interfacility transports. It's very rare. And it was done that way to prevent this sort of problem, which is to not have your local 911 services being pulled out to do these type of almost commercial transports. And so that's the system I was familiar with. I've certainly been involved in other systems in both Pennsylvania and South Carolina that are like here in North Carolina. But I think the burden that has been sometimes put on our system to do that has been extensive in the past. And so the fact that we have someone who's stepping up and willing to do this and be kind of scheduled and dedicated to the hospital, I think is excellent. I know my partners and I at MEP are profoundly excited about the possibility of having that. I also know that the county has stepped up and is going to try to meet those needs when they cannot, which I think is a really important olive branch right now with the hospital, and I've said that multiple times. And I really a lot of credit to Dr. Lowry for, I think, kind of meeting us halfway and trying to really fix this relationship in a positive way. So I don't think I have any downside to this. I'm all for it. If you guys have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them from a medical director standpoint, but I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, if I may, I left off a very important point. We are ALS, Advanced Life Support, and we will have a ventilator. We do vent traffic. We do about 10 to 12 trips a month for Select Specialty Hospital out of Greensboro and Kendrick. Both of those are ventilator specialty hospitals. And so we will have the vent capacity to move ALS patients. So it will be an ALS truck.
And you may not, or Jonathan may not, I'm just wondering this question, but how far will you travel? I mean,
How much money do you have?
Well, let me just say this. I've
We
seen
have-
West Virginia.
It's a serious question, and I was joking.
Yeah.
We've been, just last week, we went down to Orlando on a private plane.
Right, I was thinking I'd heard some
We've
of that
gone
travel.
We've gone to the Bronx, we've gone up to the Great Lakes. I think the farthest we went, we took a patient to Dallas. Patient couldn't fly, a young person couldn't fly. 2 hours after we got there, that patient went into surgery, so we had a three-man crew and had to book straight for that. So we'll go, we go as far as
Yes, sir.
makes sense.
And that answers my question to an extent, but because once he's gone, right, we're backfilling that. So if he's gone to Orlando for a 12 or 14-hour run, then that brings us up to the table.
Yeah, we're actually currently, what we're doing a little bit with that, with us, if they're not available or they're on a call, if there's a true emergency that comes out, we're willing to take it. We don't want to delay that care to go to another facility. The majority of these patients, though, if it's a true emergency, will end up being flown by air medical.
Right.
Or you've got other critical care services right around the area that can take that. And then if they're not available, say the weather's bad, it's rainy, you got multiple people out, then yes, we would fall in line. We're actually working with the hospital right now, actually have a meeting set up Wednesday with them to help narrow this down and design it a little bit more better.
Right.
To knock that out.
Yeah, we wouldn't do a long distance trip like that with the branded, what I call the branded truck. We would use a Miller truck.
Right.
Because there has to be, if there's an overnight stay, there's got a lot of stuff goes into that.
Right, yes, sir.
That truck would stay anytime we can keep it, or we would try to rotate a truck up.
I got you.
Because again, I want to transport.
Yeah.
So I guess a branded truck will have the hospital's logo and things like that, correct? Is that what you're saying by branded
Yes,
truck? That's great.
As you gentlemen know how lead times are going, I have one that's just being finished, but I had promised that to Hickory. And so the one that would be coming, I have an existing truck that will be here, but the one that would be actually branded is probably about 12 months away. And that's simply because I've got the drawings, we've approved them, and now we're waiting to get in line.
Yeah, I understand. We're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you, sir.
So with all that, I guess we can let y'all sit down because we got to do this official thing where we open now the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
So I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone else here that would like to speak to this or this issue. And if not, I'll declare that public hearing closed and ask what the pleasure of the board is this evening in adopting this ambulance franchise agreement with Miller Transport.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt the amendment ordinance for medical services with Miller Transport.
All right. Any other discussion or comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. And then we have an ordinance amendment for our emergency medical services ordinance. So our county manager, Mr. Duncan.
Yes, sir. Just a point of order. The last one, just to correct that motion, was you're approving the franchise agreement for the first reading.
Okay.
And so now we're going to amend the ordinance.
Amend the ordinance. Okay.
Correct, yeah. We just adopted this ordinance at the prior meeting. And the legal counsel we had that was advising us to say, hey, if you have a wreck now, there's some fault, it's very expensive, so you should consider raising your rates. Well, we did, and then we realized we're actually putting Miller under a burden higher than what we had, and it's counter to our insurance provider's recommendation of $1 million per occurrence and $2 million for year collectively. So we're asking just to return it back to the way it was on our insurance premiums for them to provide service. And so I think that's fair to them and to us as well, and follows our policy for our insurance provider.
Yeah.
And you have to read this one twice as well. This will come up again next month.
So, hearing the explanation for the ordinance amendment, do I hear a motion that we adopt this amendment?
I make a motion, we adopt the amendment.
Any other discussion or comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. And that brings us then to acceptance of bid offer for patrol vehicles. And I think I saw Captain Rich here come in. Yes, sir. So you're on our agenda as speaking to this. You want to come say something? Well, just tell us what you're going to do. How many are you going to buy? And are they going to be black?
They are going to be black.
Okay, all right. Does that cost more money?
It'd be about 3,000 more. No, the black color doesn't cost more money.
We're fixing to vote for white one.
Y'all was about to get white cars.
But these were 3 vehicles that were on last year's budget that we haven't been able to get just because they're not producing any.
Yeah.
And since that quote from last year, what you approved was $39,000 for last year's budget, these are going to cost $42,000. So it's about a $3,000 increase, which is almost a year and a half since we had a quote.
Right.
But Ford didn't build any 2024 Explorers unless the people who ordered 2023s didn't get their order. Luckily, they thought we didn't get our 2023s, so we got 5 coming. But the other 3, nobody could fill. And we had to do an open bid because O.C. Welch was the only one that had more than 3 vehicles. And he was the only one that bid on that open bid, for the formal bid.
All right.
But we're not asking for anything extra.
Right.
And we already have the radios, and the upfits have already been approved by this board.
Does everybody understand all that? Mm-hmm. We've had to change suppliers, I guess, to get these.
Yes.
In the synopsis, so. All right, so with that, do I hear a motion that we accept the bid offer for these 3 vehicles?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we accept the bid offer for the 3 patrol vehicles.
All right, any other discussion or comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. So thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Next is a discussion about a lease agreement that we have for our High Brighton Mountain Communications Tower that we can't do without.
We cannot, nor can the state, nor can about anybody in western North Carolina. That is the most trafficked Viper tower in the state. We have a partnership with the state where we have a lease on the ground. We use our VHF communications. They supply assets to it. Also, adjacent to us is the city of Lenoir and Blue Ridge Energy. So it's a valuable piece. That's high ground for the southern end of the county. And the lease expired 2022. And so we need to renew it. We're asking for a 20-year extension to take it all the way out from June 30 forward to 2024. And we also, in the next item is we need to, actually on item 10, we need to do a lease payment adjustment because 5 years ago, when there was supposed to be a lease payment adjustment, nobody did it. They didn't catch it. We didn't catch it. So as part of the good faith of the negotiations, we owe them approximately $15,500 in lease different payments over the 5 years. So I recommend you adopt this lease. It does have a clause out for both of us if technology changes, if something were to happen and we start communicating via satellite or whatever it is, or we're using Starlink. We do have a way to get out of it. In the old contracts, you didn't, so I think that's fair because who knows what the technology is going to be in 10 years? I can't tell you.
Is Mr. Diggs going to let us up and down the road to get to it?
We have, yes, sir, in the court order, the county and all of the providers on that mountain have clear right-of-way, including North Carolina Forest Service.
All right.
Now, I can't say it for anybody else. But.
Very well. So do I hear a motion that we adopt this lease agreement for the High Bright Mountain Communication Tower?
I make a motion that we approve the lease agreement for the High Brighton Mountain Tower.
Any other discussion or comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. And next is,
Did you carry both them together, the 10 and the...
No, I'll ask that you take all those with consent, but I just wanted to bring it up. Thank you, sir. Good catch.
all right. Our ordinance amendment, dealing with racetracks and drag strips. So give us a little background there, sir.
Yes, sir. There was a request to review the amendment for racetracks, which we just adopted last month as well, to allow for test and tune events. These are events where there would not be an audience. It would just be cup teams or professional teams coming in and doing modifications to vehicles, running a few laps, shutting them down, and then testing and making adjustments, more mechanical work. So there will not be a crowd, there will not be money taken at the gate other than the teams renting the facility to do this. It would be up to 4 times per month during the weekdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is kind of the normal working because a lot of the teams travel out of Mooresville. They have to have time to travel and they have to get back, before the end of shift. And then also there's no testing and tuning during the month of May, which were already expired, during end of grade testing, things like that, those weeks, so we're not disturbing the students. And this does expire. It has have what we call a sunset. So at the end of the race season, if they have followed the rules and they've done well, you guys can extend it if you wish, or you can let it expire as a retraction. So.
All right. So I'll open that up for any discussion. If anybody has any comment or question about it.
Mr. Chairman, I do have several comments about this. First of all, the racetrack received a grant for $485,000. That came from the state. It's taxpayer money. They spent $344,000 on lighting, and they spent $89,280.63 on improvements. There's a remaining balance of the information I received, and you all did too, $17,769.37. In the past, we have allowed the racetrack to have 2 additional special permit days, and we did that in a good faith effort that they would work to reduce the noise at the track. And we always said if they would reduce the noise, then we would allow them potential to have extra days to do these additional racing trials and operate that track. In doing this, they're asking to expand their hours to 2 more days a week. Now, the racetrack is a privately owned business. It's not a government agency. It's a privately owned business. Other privately owned businesses in this county, if they want to expand, they either have to come out of pocket with the money or they have to go to the bank and borrow money. Every other commercial business we got in the county, that's the way that works. The taxpayers have already provided $450,000 in tax dollars to the racetrack. No other privately owned business gets that kind of money. The golf courses that we have here, they don't get that kind of money. I'm sure they'd like to have some money to do the cart pass. Even our local Optimus parks that provide our kids opportunities to play ball, they barely scrape by sometimes, have to charge $3 a person for somebody to park in the parking lot just so they can raise enough money to keep it going. Every Friday and Saturday night is already taken from March to November by the racetrack. And when you say they don't race every Friday and Saturday night, that's right. They practice on Friday nights. They schedule a race on a Saturday, but the following Saturday, they have a rain day scheduled. So if you want to schedule something like an outdoor activity at Baton Park or some of the churches in the area, or even a simple birthday party at your house, you can't do that because you can't be guaranteed won't be rained out the week before, and they'll have it on the date that you've set. I did do some research. I went online. Hickory Motor Speedway, if you go to their website, they have 87 sponsors listed for the racetrack. That's the way they gain extra money to do extra things. 87. Tri-County currently has 7 sponsors. Now, what that tells me is they haven't put much effort forth to go out and get sponsors. Matter of fact, on their website, it'll tell you that you can purchase all these billboards, a 10 by 24, 10 by 12, 10 by 8, but it don't list any money out beside of it, how much it costs. It's got a dollar sign, but it doesn't tell you how much all that is. So we talked a little bit about the burden on taxpayers. Why should the burden of providing money or extra hours be placed on the taxpayers that live in the surrounding community of the racetrack? According to their numbers that they provided, their best night, they have about 4,000 people. Their average is about 3,000 people. But we don't know that for sure. That's an estimate that was given to us. So taxpayers who live in this area are being asked to bear the burden for an event that approximately 5% of the people, of the population of this county would attend on a regular basis. It's actually a little less than that. Now, again, the racetrack's not a government-owned agency. It's a privately owned business. So, as a privately owned business, why should they not be the ones going out soliciting sponsors, or why should they not be required to invest their own funds in their business in order to reduce the impact of the noise, which we've said all along, if they reduce the impact of the noise, then they can have extra hours. The only thing that I can see that they've done is spend the taxpayer money that was given to them on additional lighting, on improvements to the track, but then also to come up here every 2 or 3 months and ask for additional this or additional that. They come to this Board of Commissioners. The racetrack ordinance was established a long time ago to create a compromise between the racetrack owners and the community. A compromise, something that would work. The current owners of the racetrack knew exactly what that ordinance was when they purchased the racetrack. They knew what their boundaries were. If they want to expand, I think the burden should be on the racetrack and not on the backs of the taxpayers of this county. That's my opinion. If you guys decide you want to change the ordinance, that'll be fine. I will be voting no to do that.
All right.
Donald, in this amendment, did we make it clear, is it in writing, that if they don't have the barrier up by the beginning of the 2024-2025 season, that we will pull that back?
How you handle it is that it has a built-in sunset, so there's a fixed term. So if that hasn't happened, or, when the new season starts, you can renew this. So it's an automatic switch.
So we have to renew it in the spring?
You would have to renew it for the spring, yeah.
Okay. So,
there'll be another vote.
Craig, you understand that if this passes tonight, that if you don't have barriers up come spring of 2025 race season, that we're not going to approve going into 2025 season. You understand that, correct?
I understand, yeah, but again, when you say barriers.
The sound barriers, you bought poles?
I understand. What I'm asking is, I just want to clarify, are we circling the whole property? Or just clarification on the sound barrier.
Yeah, I think the issue for me is that that backstretch turns, I guess would be what, 1 and 2, maybe halfway between 2 and 3, that little area right there is kind of where I'm visioning it to be.
Could I?
Sure, come on up.
The area that you're talking about, turns 1 and 2, that face I guess it would be the northern side of the property. There is an elevation at that end of the racetrack where the fence between us and the golf course is. As you go about 900 feet, close, maybe 1,000 feet, then it starts dropping down. So any barrier that you put past that, I don't think would be effective, because it's going to be down below the surface of the racetrack then. So we've looked at it. We're proposing, or what we're hoping to do, is 1,000 feet on that side of the racetrack. Again, that's going to put it up it's probably 15 foot above the level where tier parking is. So again, you go 10 more foot, that's 25 foot above the tier parking area, which is another 4 or 5 feet above the racetrack service. So we're prepared to do that, but I wasn't going to sit here and say, yes, sir.
Yeah.
When you're thinking the whole thing and we're thinking the area that's going to be affected.
No, it doesn't make, there it's going to be affected. It wouldn't make any sense to put it below the track.
Right.
It would be in the area that's impacting the citizens in that
Just
particular area.
while we're discussing, make sure everybody's on the same page here.
Fair question.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you guys understand that.
Yes, sir, yeah.
You know, my feeling is that you guys made an effort, you bought the poles, and we've told you all along that if you would make an effort, we'd give you a little something. So it's going to be hard, and I understand the cost of the poles and putting the poles up. But I also understand that we have to consider the citizens in that area, and you and I have had numerous conversations about it. But I just want to make sure you understood that if we don't get the barriers up, they come to spring, I'm not going to vote to extend it or to do it again next year.
I understand.
I'm giving you the opportunity, to Robbie's point, I'm giving you an opportunity to do something.
And also to Mr. Wilkie's point, you're right, we got about $17,000 left of that grant money. That grant money was
17.
17.
You got about 17,000 left, not
Yeah.
70.
No, I said 17.
Oh, okay, I thought you said 70.
That grant money was for the state. I mean, it was, because of Destin Hall, they got the wording changed, so we qualified for that. But somebody was going to get it, whether it was us or somebody else, whoever qualified for it. Governor Cooper's the one that put all that deal together. We just reaped the benefits of it. I understand, it's taxpayer money, I understand that. But Wilkesboro got 19 million. Charlotte got 10 million. Rockingham got 10 million. There was $5 million left of the 45 million that was distributed to tracks within North Carolina that met those specifications. So we were lucky that we got that. To one other point that Mr. Wilkie brought up, Hickory Speedway, they can test there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are able to generate money. Hickory Speedway is not in the same shape that Tri-County Speedway's in. I'm proud to say that. We made such improvements at that speedway. We have people calling us, wanting to come to us, and we've been having to tell them no for 2 years. And that's why this is so important to us, because it's revenue that we can bring in that will help make it even bigger. I've got people that are coming this month in a couple of weeks, and they'd shoot me if I told you who they are, because the grandstand would be full, and we don't want that. We got some really special people coming that want to be at Tri-County, want to test at Tri-County. So, anything else?
Not that I can think of. You guys have been good stewards out there, and you've offered a track for special events and things like that, and that's greatly appreciated. But to Commissioner Wilkie's point is, it's really about the noise.
I understand.
So I think that is the top #1 priority, and if these barriers can eliminate the noise, then great. I hope they will, and I hope they'll do exactly what we want them to do. And I also understand you were here the last meeting. You've got to have revenue, generate revenue to put the poles up, right? So I get that. So that's why I'm supporting this, is to give you the opportunity to generate some revenue to put those poles up. But I'm going to say it again. If you ain't got them up come spring, I'm not voting to extend it.
Like we've heard so many other people talking tonight about the cost of things going up. And when we first checked on this a year ago, it's gone up significantly from just the pieces that it takes to make this deal happen. But we're willing to put forth the effort to make that happen.
Yeah, I'm not saying just the effort. Come spring, if they ain't up, the other ones might support it, but I'm not going to support it if they ain't up.
Yes, sir.
Now, am I reading the ordinance correctly? It's 4 per month.
Correct.
So it could be every Monday in that month, but other than that, it would be just Monday, or Monday, Tuesday, twice a month, just 4 4 times. Is that understanding?
That is correct. When I will say this, I did talk to the owner, Shad Higgins, and Shad said that typically it's going to be 1 day, maybe 2. It's going to be rare that it's going to be 4 days. Now, maybe once word gets out that they're allowing that to happen, they may get some more activity, but.
It's in addition to what they're already doing. So I want you to understand, it's not just.
No, that's correct.
It's 3 or 4 days.
That is correct.
Have we,
The current ordinance doesn't allow them, it allows them to run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 consecutive days. They can't run all 3. This would allow them to, once or twice or whatever a month, for up to 4 times a month, they could bring a cup team in to test to generate revenue. They rent that track out.
And most of this will be from like 10 to 4 or
Correct.
somewhere, and will be the time.
And it's
for
not,
it. So it's not early
Jeff,
in the morning or
that's
late in the
correct.
evening.
And Jeff's right, it's, to Donald's point earlier, they will put a car on the track. This is what Shad's telling me. They will put a car on the track, they'll run 3 or 4 laps, they'll bring it in, they'll work on it 30 minutes to an hour, take it back out, run a few more laps, bring it back in. And here's what's happening. In NASCAR, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, NASCAR teams cannot test on a NASCAR sanctioned track. This particular track is not NASCAR sanctioned, so it's got a lot of interest because of that. The teams that are going to be there during the week are primarily going to be cup teams and professional late model type teams, because the good old boys that race on Saturday nights, they're working during the week. They're not going to be testing. They come on Fridays and test, or Thursdays, whatever they work out. But this is going to be primarily NASCAR cup teams, professional cup teams, and professional late model teams that are, sponsorship type teams. And they'll have, there's going to be well-known people there that'll be on this track.
So have we reached out, I know we talked about during May, the schools with EOC, but there could be other times at the school, be it a field day or something like that, where all the kids are outside, have to deal with the potential of the noise. I know there's several churches around that, and I know funerals from time to time will happen in those churches, maybe during those times. Have we made any consideration for a school if they're having a field day? I know we've got end-of-grade testing, but a field day where all the kids are out on the field, or if Baton Baptist Church is just right down the road, and there may be some other churches that, out of respect, that we would honor the time for a funeral, even if it was during the 10 to 4, where they could have their funeral. Are we making considerations for that?
We've already done that. We've reached out to Baton, and we did cancel practice during the time of a funeral one Saturday. And, we just stopped everything on the racetrack and had them to let us know when they were done.
Okay.
And then with our curfew at 11 o'clock, that really packed up that night. But we made it happen because we want to be good neighbors.
Okay. So you would do this also on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if something like that?
As long as we've got their schedule, their calendar, then we would be able to tell the team that's in question wanting to come, it's not available that day. Yeah, that's easy. Again, if as long as we knew their schedule. If we had already committed to that, I think, and then they call, hey, we're doing field day tomorrow, it'd be hard to pull a plug then.
Well, I understand about advance notice about field day, and the schools should know that. But now the funerals, they may not know it.
And that funeral had to be on a Saturday, so they knew that there was a possibility we were racing, so they reached out to us, and we said, yeah, we'll work with you.
Yeah, my understanding is, from Shad, is Baton is aware that, all they have to do is call if there's anything going on. Baton calls and says, hey, we have a funeral on whatever day, and they'll know to stop practice for that particular moment. That's because I asked Shad the same question.
That's correct.
Yeah. They have an understanding with the church.
Well, I mean, I've been on the board long enough to where I've been dealing with the racetrack for many years, and it's just it's just very sensitive. I know there was a petition, and I know Commissioner Potter reached out to quite a few folk, and so, you know, my concern is that, you know, if we go forward and we get tremendous pushback from that, can we pull back any sooner, or are we going to have to wait till the race season's over? I mean, if we have, you know, because you know, people may not realize what we've done until they hear it going, and then get upset. Maybe these people didn't participate in the petition or whatever. I just want to be sensitive to the community. I understand the barrier, getting it up as quick as possible, and I hope that reduces the sound. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at.
So I did, and you make a great point, and I forgot that. I did tell Shad that if we got significant pushback, that, you know, we'd have to have a conversation around what the next step would be. I don't know if is it written in there in the amendment, Donald?
So I'm not sure I understand your question.
So Mike's question was if we start getting inundated with calls, trying to be sensitive to it, if we start getting inundated, is there a clause that allows us to pull back?
You can repeal it at any time. It would take 2 readings, so it's not a short process as with any ordinances now, but yes.
Okay.
You have that authority.
I'll tell you what's weird is, and I guess I don't, obviously if you were maybe an engineer, you'd understand it, but I did go talk to several people in the area, stood on their front porches or stood in their living rooms and talked to them. Right at the track, kind of in turn 3, there's people that live right in there. And they were testing the day that I was there. It was on a Friday. And they were testing, or practicing, I guess, not testing, but practicing. You could hear them, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would have been, because I guess that sound, houses are kind of down below the track, so the sound's going over the top of the track. Where in Robbie's instance, the sound's coming out, and there's nothing to block it. So I'm hopeful that those barriers will make a difference. And I just found it interesting that it's really not, it's bad, but it ain't really that bad right at the track, because it's sitting down below the track.
Our closest neighbors love us.
No, they do. I agree. I talked to them.
The last race I drove around, just parked several different places, and I mean, you could hear it. It was a racetrack, but I didn't think it was crazy loud. Anywhere I went and parked, up and down Hickory Nut Ridge Road and went around to the Connie Springs Road. And I mean, it was a racetrack, but I was shocked that it wasn't louder than it was.
Yeah, I think the loud parts on that turn 1 and 2
Most of us
is
can sit
pretty
in our
rough over
house
there.
with the air conditioning on and the TV going and still hear it.
Yeah. Because I think you're up more so than the.
Well, not just me,
turn.
my neighbors.
No, I'm saying that you guys are setting up a little higher than they are in turn 2 and 3 right there where Jeff's talking about. It's down, so.
And on the track side, they're below that wall.
That's what I mean.
There is a wall there on that side.
Yeah, there's a bank.
Where the tunnel's at, there's a wall.
Yeah, there's a big bank there
and
too.
it sends that noise up.
Well, that's where they got all the ads, right there. Yeah. So, and to Robbie's point earlier, you know, when you get that barrier up, you can sell spots right there. You know, to help pay for that.
I apologize for the website not being up to date, but we didn't have enough money to hire somebody to operate the website. So we have more than 7 sponsors. We just don't have them all on there.
All right. Anybody else? Questions or comments? Thank you, Craig.
Yes, sir.
Well, with all of that, I'll open it up and entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance amendment as has been presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we adopt this ordinance amendments to the racetracks and drag strips.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And that's Commissioner Wilkie dissenting, so we certainly appreciate all the opportunity to speak and talk about it, and hope that everything goes well going forward for those folks there. And I guess to Commissioner Potter's point, if you've got heartburn with it, call us and let us know going forward. So, all right. That brings us then to our consent agenda this evening.
Go fast.
I'm sorry, if I could, you will have to vote on this ordinance twice.
Okay.
They will have to vote again in July because
Yes.
of Senate Bill
Yeah.
300.
And it's been duly advertised and posted all over the place about this meeting, so. But it will be again in July
Yes.
8th. All right.
Consent agenda. We have the High Mountain Communications Tower lease payment that is roughly $285 a month for over 5 years, amount of $15,500. We have a budget revision to approve capital expenditure for stretchers. You already approved buying these, but we were able to find funding so it won't come out of the budget in general fund. Our health department has been exceedingly good about going out and getting grants, and so Ms. Anna Cook now contacted us and said, hey, we have some money left over at the end of the year. Do we have anything we can spend it on? So her staff went to work with emergency services. This is one of a few expenditures that we have, but it will save the county $171,000 for the 2 ambulances that are coming online to have the power load stretchers. So those are hugely important for ergonomics and the safety of our employees, reducing workers' comp claims. So we really need those, and that's a big win for us all. We have several grant applications. Mr. DePail with the Sheriff's Office is here, and we have approval of the grant submission for the 2024 COPS hiring grant. If we're able to receive this, would be a 75% grant, 25% match back to the county to hire deputies that focus on domestic violence and crisis intervention, and also take care of smaller issues like unattended deaths, to take officers off the road. This would be a fantastic grant if we get it, but you'll be approving that submittal tonight. A grant from the Gary Sinise Foundation. We've not applied for this before that I'm aware of, but this would allow us to provide ATVs to do searches and things like that in rough terrain and in Wilson Creek. Approval of grant application submission for the 2024 Patrick Leahy Vest Partnership. This allows us to get 50% reimbursement back on 11 vests for our officers. This is a fantastic program, been around for a while. Approval of grant submission from Black Rifle Coffee Company, which is tuition assistance for our folks to do the forensic analysis training for software. So when we have more and more cyber crimes, this allows us to have the proper software and the proper training to do that. Approval of a grant application submission from AKC Reunite to adopt a K-9 cop grant. This gives us $7,500 with a local $2,500 match toward the purchase of 2 new K-9s who are retiring. The next big one is our HCCCBG funding. You know this as our in-home aid services that we use. This works through multiple nonprofit and for-profit agencies. The Western Piedmont Council of Governments solicited RFPs, and the amount this year is $583,000 that goes toward those services, and our local match is $64,801. It is down about $13,000 from last year's grant. Just be aware of that. You're approving the JCPC funding plan. This also includes things like the Conflict Resolution Center and psychological assessments on teens and children who may have been assaulted. Memorandum of Agreement for Cooperative Extension. This is the program where we match our part of the state's contribution for salaries. And that's a nice controlled environment that helps us with that. And then we have the Economic Development Advisory Committee reappointments. Ms. Bonnie Cottle, Jonathan Greer, Rick Coffey, and Max Dyer, and the new town manager, Daniel Cobb, for Granite Falls, replacing the Granite Falls town manager. If you'll remember, these committee members are on staggered 3-year terms. The first group was a 1-year term, Group 2 is a 2-year term, and Group 3 is a 3-year term. So this is the first of the 1-year folks that would be reappointed. You also have a fireworks application for Tri-County Speedway, approval of the minutes from May 13th, and the budget workshop from May 14th. item 24 that was added is the camera system at HHS. Y'all got a quick email on that last week, and there's a memo there in front of you for a budget transfer. That is our most traffic building, of course, and it's also a building where we require the courts have child exchanges, visitation exchanges, and so we have to keep cameras in that building just, for the criminal element as well. The system is 20 years old, the main system, and it's been rebuilt multiple times, and now there's no more parts available to rebuild it and get it up and running. Our folks and our vendors spent 2 weeks to try to do that, and so they recommend we're going to have to replace it. So if you put a new brain in the system, the older cameras don't work with that brain, so this is a full system. It'll be 4K. It also is AI enabled, so if you want to search for Donnie's plaid jacket and you give it the colors, it'll be able to track that around the building. I have to pick on his jacket because I like it. And now, you also have a grant that's outstanding with FEMA and Nickel Giza. That grant is 2 months out before we'll know about it. If we're able to get that grant, that will offset some of the funding that we already have set aside for that project. So if we get that $300,000, that's less money we have to spend in the budget, so that could come back and pay for this. But we need to go ahead and move forward with it now, and you may get the chance to reimburse yourselves if we're lucky. It's been down for over 2 weeks now, almost 3 weeks now, and so we need to do something about it. Soil and Water requested a contribution to Total State Forest. It's a line item transfer of only $2,000, but because it's to a nonprofit, you approve those with each budget. Since you're adding a nonprofit funding, you guys need to approve that. And next year, if they want to do it, we can budget that or do a budget amendment in the future. That would be the only reason for that, is that you guys approve every nonprofit funding as a commissioner action. And then we have a fireworks display for the town road hiss for approval.
All right. So here in the consent agenda, anybody have any questions, or do we have a motion to adopt?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept this evening's consent agenda as the county manager has presented.
All right. Any other discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And we're going to be entering into a closed session now for another hour and a half. So I want to make a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A4 to discuss a matter related to economic development with the county attorney, county manager, deputy county manager, county clerk, chief financial officer, economic development director, economic development staff, and any other personnel that may attend as we deem necessary. So, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries, and we thank everyone for being here this evening, and we will rejoin you in about an hour and a half. Thank you.
Thank you.
I couldn't even form sentences.
Thank you, sir.